Welcome back. All right, news of the day video for all you fine people on the internet for your Thursday, December the 21st. We have games tonight, tomorrow, and Saturday, and then 3 days off for the Christmas break for the NHL, and it might be a 3 day break for me too, kind of, sort of, roundabout, a little bit. We do have a live stream on Christmas Day. That is an annual tradition. We will be doing that this year as well. Not everybody has family in this magical Christmas experience. I did a video on that on the Entertainment Guy, and I totally get it. So for people who just want to hang out and chat, Christmas streams there. So Nolan Patrick, and this is something that shouldn't happen but does, and it sounds like it was an honest mistake. So Nolan Patrick is currently in a video coaching role. He's helping a few players out, and on the site that was reporting on this, Power Play Hockey has a post on Instagram where they had posted he was retired hockey player Nolan Patrick. Now, Nolan Patrick has not officially retired. He also hasn't played in a couple of years. And since he's doing video coaching for players in the Czech Extraliga, the odds of him ever playing in the NHL again are basically zero. And we know this. But Nolan Patrick, apparently somebody who likes to keep a low profile, doesn't like to attract a lot of attention. This has given him a lot of attention that he didn't really want. And so he has not officially retired at this stage. It just makes the whole thing awkward now for when he eventually does. So I do feel bad for him on that one. And so, yeah. It's odd because I can't remember ever seeing where everybody in the media is reporting this guy's retired and they actually haven't, but that's where we're at. That's the whole social media age that we're in right now. All right, so all the best to him, and I hope he enjoys all the video coaching and everything else that he's doing. And who knows, maybe he does really well with that. Word of mouth means he ends up with a job at the NHL level, and I think that would be great as well. There are certainly players who've had short NHL careers or injury shortened careers who went on to have very successful careers in hockey at coaching levels for scouting, training, whatever it is. So, all the best to Nolan Patrick on that. Mark Giordano will not play for the Toronto Maple Leafs until after the Christmas break, so he's out for about a week. At this rate, at least we know he's going to be out for about a week. Samsonov is also starting tonight for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I do find it interesting, the goalie carousel in Toronto. It's fascinating looking at it, and at some point in time, I should do a video on the goalie carousel in Toronto because Samsonov could be a very good goaltender. I know he's inconsistent, but there's not a lot of options right now. So it's going to be Jones and Samsonov until Wall's ready to come back. And I don't think there should be any panic about Samsonov starting games, but again, there's a whole debate to be had there. Jared Spurgeon, lower body injury, will not play tonight. He could play Saturday. Jesse Pierce reporting that for the Minnesota Wild. So Spurgeon out of the lineup definitely hurts their blue line, but for Minnesota under John Hines, things have been going pretty well. We'll see how things go tonight in that game against the Montreal Canadiens, who I understand have had struggles winning games in Minnesota. Sergachev will not play tonight. Lower body injury for him with Tampa. It feels like we're getting less and less information on injured players as time goes on. I've mentioned this, and this is basically the information. He's day-to-day, won't play tonight, and that's where we're at. Lower body injury. So Bally Sports. So we're going to go back to the Bally Sports discussion. There was a lot of concern about whether or not Bally Sports might drop their NHL broadcast mid-season. Whether or not the NHL will be left holding the bag. There are 11 teams that are currently on Bally networks. And so while on some level I'm thinking, okay, if the Bally Sports Chiron on the bottom of the screen is not at the bottom of the screen anymore, because again, the score should be at the top of the screen. Not only that, but the fact that half the time the Chiron is advertisements, it doesn't even show you the score. At least it feels that way. That the score and everything else is just it's advertisements for the lower 10% of the screen. But anyways, Bally Sports will be done with NHL teams at the end of this season. They're going to pay some of what they owe. It's not going to be the amount of money that they owe for having the NHL contract, but they are in bankruptcy. The NHL's just taking basically what they can right now because they're not being offered a lot else, and that's likely the last offer. And I think they want to get it done and out of the way as well. So at the end of this season, all 11 contracts, so those 11 teams, regional broadcasting rights will revert to the teams. The NHL's got about 10 months to plan this out and figure out what's going to happen here, but it is going to financially hurt some of those teams. It's not seen as something that will dramatically influence revenues in the National Hockey League to a point where we'd be talking about what it would do to the salary cap. But it's not going to make the cap go up or go down, really. But it could hurt some of those teams. And just the fact that if your broadcasting plan's going to reach fewer eyeballs, that's going to hurt your plans as well. But at any rate, we'll see what happens in those 11 markets. And I mean, we've already seen in a couple of markets, Arizona and Vegas, I know are running their own. Isn't Pittsburgh running their own too? It feels like that's the future. I think eventually we're going to have where every team runs their own broadcast locally, and then there'll be some kind of national plan. I think the NHL should do something like this too, where they're basically it's in house. The national broadcasts are still national broadcasts, but regional can be done in house as much as possible. And I think then you can create a better viewing experience for your audience that way. But we'll see. And I think if they can come up with, I don't know, some kind of plan that does away with regional blackouts. Please, National Hockey League, it's the 21st century, it's 2023. Can we get rid of regional blackouts? Because they don't really make a lot of sense at this point in time. And I understand all the broadcasting and why they're in place, but at this point in time, they feel very outdated. And I think for a league that's trying to get more people to watch, the regional blackouts do not help. Hitting. So I've seen a lot of talk about this. Hitting's down this season, and I think there's a bigger video that I can do on this at some point. The discussion too is about the fact there's so few open ice hits now. Players are not ready to be hit. So we've been talking about some of the more controversial hits lately, but there's always that side too with the guy who's taking the hit. Is he ready for the hit? Is he expecting one? And of course, Dylan Larkin coming out talking about how he doesn't feel as safe now and the question about where the line is. And I think there's a lot to be said there. But the fact that hitting is down and there's fewer hits is part of it. So when there's fewer hits, I think we also see fewer of the violent hits, which I'm okay with. But we're in a league now where it's scoring, it's a lot of the transition game, a lot of rush chances. Really, it's not the grinding, hitting, even when the puck's along the boards now, you'll get 6 or 8 guys along the boards, but it's not like somebody's coming in and hitting guys while they're along the boards fighting for the puck either. So hitting is definitely down, and it's become less prominent in the game, and it has led to, I think, players being less ready to take that hit because they're not getting hit as often. So I think it's a more complicated issue than just these hits bad, take hits out. I think that there's more there because if we end up in a situation where we decide, okay, there's more and more hits that we're going to decide are suspendable. I'm not saying it's wrong, but that also will lead to a league where hitting really drops off because then when a guy's going in to make a hit and he knows that's going to be suspendable because it's on the numbers. Again, I'm not saying it's wrong, but now you're going to end up in a situation where other hits where maybe it's not on the numbers, but it could end up being where they're like, I'm not going to throw that hit. So I think there's a more complicated discussion to be had where I'm going to have to fill the board with various things. But your hitting's definitely down right now. I've noticed in games that last year, for instance, I'd watch, as many games as I could and write down all the stats. Buffalo always seemed to be in the single digits. And it kind of became a talking point for me to say, yeah, Buffalo wasn't hitting tonight. They didn't feel like it. I haven't been saying that this year because there's a lot more teams. It feels like there's a lot more games where teams are hitting in the single digits. Where at the end of the game, the hits are 8-5. And then the other question that comes up is, or are they just not recording the hits? Because watching the games, I don't really notice that hitting's necessarily not as present. But maybe I'm so busy watching all these rush chances and all this transition play that, I don't really pay attention to the fact there's less hits. So, yeah, look forward to that video soon. Cale Makar might play tonight. He was in his regular jersey at practice. So that's an indication he's close at the very least. Gerard is at morning skate. He's not ready to return yet. They're still working at getting him up to speed. And so once you have Gerard and Makar in your lineup, that's going to make your lineup a lot better. We've talked a lot about how Colorado's had their struggles. I still think this is a team that misses Gabe Landeskog a lot. I think that they've been doing their best to, make up for the loss of Landeskog. I don't think you necessarily can. And so I do think that Colorado needs to work on their depth. They traded out Tatar because it wasn't working there. And Tatar seems to be working out pretty well for Seattle. But with that cap space, they're expected to make some moves between now and the deadline. They need the depth. The one name that I read this morning was Lindholm out of Calgary, so that would make some sense. But I remember articles over the last 3 years of players going to Colorado that didn't end up there. So we'll see. It's just it looks like that would be a natural fit, and I think a lot of the times that's how media things take off. Where somebody will go, this team needs a center, this team's looking to trade a center. Boom. This team needs a goalie. This team got an extra goalie. Bam. And so that makes it so there's a better chance of you being accurate as well when you go, yeah, no, this looks like this is going to be the thing that works. So tonight for Canuck fans, it is the fourth healthy scratch for Kuzmenko. So for Andrei Kuzmenko, I will say this: isn't this the second game in a row now that he's been a healthy scratch? It definitely feels like with each passing game that Kuzmenko's scratched, we're getting closer to him potentially being moved, right? It's a shame that it's gone in this direction. The problem is, and I did see the one comment on the channel, and I responded to the other day about Talkett's the problem, and so Talkett should be gone, not Kuzmenko. But it's hard to fire a coach when your team's 22-9-2 and having the best season they've ever had. So it is tough to sell ownership and management on the idea of making a change behind the bench when the lineup he's putting together is winning as often as it is. And tonight they're in Dallas, and I think Vancouver has a very good chance of winning in Dallas. But we'll see how that goes. And again, I'm saying that even though, Kuzmenko's not going to be on the ice, because we've seen how good that third line is. I think part of what's going to hurt Kuzmenko's chances of getting back in the lineup is every line on that team right now has good chemistry. First, second, third, fourth, they're all clicking. And so you don't want to mess with that. And that's where a guy who ends up being on the outside looking in can end up being, not a permanent healthy scratch, obviously, because injuries are going to happen and everything, but that's kind of what he's waiting for, right? And with Kuzmenko's talent and his age, he should not be a healthy scratch, but that's where we're at with the Vancouver Canucks. So we'll see what happens with him as the season rolls along. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you've not done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.